Kristen, I'm just gonna wait until Josh and Tony jump on.
Okay.
Kristen, how's the farmer's market shaping up?
Good. We have about 29 vendors coming. So it's
Excellent.
looking good. Yeah, it looks like the rain's gonna hold off until later. So I'm excited.
Why, is it supposed to rain?
Well, later in the day, they said, but I don't think it's gonna be too bad.
And it starts at what time?
10 a.m. to 1 p.m.
We should sneak it in.
Yeah.
That's a big increase in vendors, is it not?
Yeah, I think it's close to our biggest one.
Oh, that's
Hey,
great.
Tony, I'm on by phone.
All right.
Okay.
All right, I know, I'm just waiting for Josh and Tony.
Okay.
should be shortly.
We got Josh.
Oh, we got Josh? Okay, 1 second. Let me turn my lights down over here.
There we go.
Hey, Josh. Okay, hold on 1 second. Let me get the agenda up here. Okay, 6:31. I'll call the Board of Selectmen's meeting of Wednesday, October 11th, 6:31 via Zoom to order. Let's see, Josh and Jean and Tony are on. Let me do opening comments first. Some of the same comments. Compost area open on Wednesdays and Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. 2023 resident parking stickers required. Visit the Public Works page at nahant.org for a full list of acceptable material. Recycling for metal, white goods, TVs, computers. Last day of this season will be October 28th from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. behind the DPW garage on Flash Road. Resident stickers required. Visit the Public Works Department at nahant.org for acceptable materials. Certain fees may apply. Curbside leaf pickup begins in October every Monday. These must be in biodegradable bags only. No open barrels, roots, root balls, or branches bigger than 4 inches in diameter. Bags must be out by 7 a.m. Hazardous waste collection day, Saturday, October 14th, 2023, from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. at the Lynn DPW 2000 Commercial Street in Lynn. See community calendar at nahant.org for a full list of acceptable material. Water, sewer, trash bills due October 23rd. Please call the Treasurer Collector's Office with any questions. And finally, let's see, the market by the sea, formerly Farmers Market, will be held this Saturday, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Flash Road, October 14th. For more information or become a vendor, visit the market page at nahant.org or email ktaylor@nahant.org.
We should let everybody know that she's got, Kristen's got 29 vendors signed up.
That sounds great. Yeah. It's been a great success. Annual PTO Halloween Bash Saturday, October 21st, starting at 2 p.m. at the Little League Field in Nahant. With that, Josh, any opening comments?
No.
Gene?
And just one question, what is included in hazardous waste disposal? What kind of chemicals?
So paint, hazardous materials, like any kind of paints, cleaning products. There's a whole list on our website on the community calendar for that date, as well on the Public Works Department, that shows you everything that you can dispose of and everything you cannot dispose of.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so they can visit those two parts of the website and find out all of that information.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Gene. Let's see, on new business, we have one item of new business, and that is a discussion and vote on amendments to the Nahant Wharf Boat Storage Agreement. With that, I'll turn this over to Tony. Hopefully you're still connected.
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yep, thank you. Before we get into the motion, essentially we, called this selectmen meeting kind of off schedule because boats are being hauled out and to be stored on the wharf tomorrow and Friday. At our last meeting, the discussion about pressure washing, bottom paint on the boats, and that hazardous waste product from that pressure washing activity finding its way into the harbor. And we came together and talked a lot about this issue, and worked with Dan, our town council, is Dan on the call?
Yep.
All right, so Dan's on, so I'll pass it off to him in a moment. But talked to a number of neighboring town storage facilities and marinas. Looked into what the state, guidance is and rules and regulations. Tried to find, put an effort into finding alternative methods, and we're going to continue to push that. We're going to continue to look at alternative ways to provide the storage, the boat owners who store their boats at the wharf, convenient ways to clean their boats. But at this point, we need to make a change to our rules and regulations that, really prohibits the use of pressure washing and that waste product going into the harbor, because it is not permitted. It is not in accordance with state law or federal law governed by DEP and the EPA. This isn't a town. This isn't a town decision here. This is us, kind of digging into it and learning, really what is and isn't allowed. So we're going to continue to try to find alternative methods and ways to provide convenient ways to service one's boat. But in the meantime, we have to, change our contract, change our rules and regulations to be in accordance with the state and federal laws and regulations. So with that, I'll turn it to Dan if he has anything else to add and to offer a motion for the board to consider.
Dan, before you do it, should we make the motion and then go into discussion?
Well, no, not yet. I think we should, because the motion is based on the discussion. So I think we should discuss it first, and then the motion could be made pursuant to the discussion.
Okay.
So we should discuss it first. And I can add to what Tony said. And it is that we need to get ahead of this. Ablative paint being spewed into the stormwater system, which ends up into the ocean, is a violation of the Clean Water Act. And there's no question regarding this. There's plenty of literature from the state that warns against this and advises against it. There have been EPA violations straight up the North Shore, from Beverly to Gloucester, including Marblehead. I've gotten copies of them, and they're in the thousands of dollars. They could be much worse, but the EPA, for whatever the reasons were being a bit generous with regard to these particular incidents. But it could be much worse, into the hundreds of thousands of dollars in terms of statutory damages. So as it stands now, we do the DPW, I should say, does lay down what they call straw swaddle or wattle, which are the sausage-looking straw snake, so to speak. But whether that's enough is left to be seen, because we need to adopt best management practices when it comes to this. And the hook to the law is the fact that this goes into the stormwater system, as I mentioned earlier. I spoke to Marblehead, and they out and out prohibit pressure washing on their marinas. I got the boat storage agreement from Salem. It also outright prohibits the pressure washer cleaning on their marinas. And I spoke to the harbor master from Swampscott, and it's not an issue for them because they don't pressure wash. They don't store boats on the wharf anymore, on the fisherman's wharf anymore. So it's not an issue for them. I spoke to Volunteer Yacht Club. They do allow pressure washing, but the wash water does not end up in the stormwater system. It leaches into the ground because there's a bunch of pebbles and gravel and whatnot. So it doesn't make it to the stormwater system. So it doesn't really affect them. But it does affect us. And it just takes one event for the EPA to hook into us, and then they're here forever until this whole thing is solved. But before that happens, we need to take measures to avoid, the first issue is to take measures to avoid any sort of violation. The second measure is to try to come up with a system or a program that allows us to use the pressure washing on the wharf and capture the wash water before it goes into the ocean, and either treat it or dispose of it off site. But the fact is, something needs to be done before the state comes in, or even the feds come in and start doing it for us. And that's what tonight is all about.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan. Josh, I know you're an active member of this community. Perhaps you have anything to say?
Yeah, I do have the unique perspective because I'm serving on this board, obviously, but I'm a boat owner who's stored my boat in the wharf parking lot for 35 years, and I pressure wash the bottom of my boat, and I've always had the sense that maybe this isn't the most environmentally friendly thing, but I've recently learned that it's illegal. And I think it's fair to say that all three of us on the board have been consistent in our actions and words. That we're advocates for the environment in open space here in Nahant, and this falls in line with that pattern of behavior, and a big part of why all three of us, I think, are serving on this board. But more importantly than that, it's the law. So we can't, as policymakers, have a policy that permits something that's illegal at a federal and state level. So we could make rules that are stricter than federal and state laws, but we can't have things that are more lax than federal and state laws. And the timing stinks with the boats coming out tomorrow, but we can't condone an illegal activity and put the town at risk. It's a difficult situation, and I've been pretty crabby about it for several days in a row now. I'm trying to work on a solution for the future, but that isn't going to be in place tomorrow or even next week. We have, thanks to Tony and Dan digging into things, the rules that need to be followed, and we'll try to do that. My personal belief is that this effort to, if people want to use pressure washers on their boats that are stored down there, this effort should be driven by the boat owners in terms of designing the system, getting it approved or whatever, and that the involvement from the town should be kept to a minimum, since it's, it's the boat owners that really will be benefiting from any remediation that allows the convenient use of pressure washers. So I'm going to be working on that, and I hope I get some help. But in the near term, yeah, we can't allow something that is in violation of the law.
Well, thanks, Josh. Jane, any comments on this?
Yeah, just a comment based upon conversations I've had with several people. And it's really not about the compliance to the laws. It's more about the how and when. Late notice on this with the boats coming out tomorrow, and then also what kind of a process can be put in place, and what's the time frame on that? Will we be able to work on that over the winter and come up with a reasonable measure to do this in the spring and the summer?
Thanks, Jane. I think those are a good point you make. Unfortunately, the timing isn't great, but the law is the law, whether we discovered it last month or the month before or last week. I think, as Josh said, we can, as policymakers, be in violation of standing laws. I will say that I will certainly work with Tony and Josh and Jean over the winter to see if there's some sort of solution that we can come up with in the future, perhaps maybe this spring. Boat ownership in Nahant is part of the fabric of Nahant. We all don't own boats, but we enjoy watching people who do own boats and enjoy their boats down the wharf every summer and spring, and it's part of our community. We don't all have kids in school, but we all enjoy watching the kids walk to school every day. We don't all go to the library, but we're all fortunate to have a great library in town. So, with that said, I hope we can find a solution to accommodate boat owners in the future, because I do think, I'm not a boat owner myself, but I do think it's an important fabric of our community. We should try to help out as much as we can. So, anything else, Tony, on this before I open it up? I know that there's some people online here that like to speak up on it.
No, I think you hit it there, and the other selectmen as well, and Dan did a good job. I mean, I understand completely the timing of it, and that being frustrating and upsetting to the boat owners. Certainly not intentional. And I'm, here to answer any questions or, respond to any comments if you want to ask those on the phone that have any to speak up. But yeah, we're essentially, discovered that we had to do something, and we're not done. We're going to continue to find ways and look at this and try to find a way to provide an alternative. So with that, I'll leave it to you to either go into the motion or open it up to.
Let's before we go into the motion, we'll open it up. Kristen, just make sure that when you identify someone to speak, that they say their name and address.
Yep. So I do have a question in the chat.
Can I just add one thing before we go to this, Mr. Chairman? So yeah, the timing, as we've acknowledged, is bad, but the timing is in part driven by the fact that the boats are coming out of the water tomorrow, and we have to do this before they come out of the water. Otherwise, we expose the town to the risk of penalties from the EPA, as Dan outlined. So it's not a coincidence that it's tonight. It's driven by the fact that the boats are coming out. And, if we had all this knowledge 6 months ago, that would have been great, but that's not where we're at. So I just wanted to add that about the timing, that it's because we have to prevent this before it happens, to prevent, incurring a penalty in addition to, protecting the environment, of course.
Thanks, Josh. Okay, go ahead, Kristen.
Yep, so we do have a message in the chat, just one for right now, but if anybody does want to address the board, please either raise your hand or send me a message in the chat so I can ask you to unmute. So I do have a Tom here. Tom, I'm going to ask you to unmute if you'd like to address the board. Let's see if he can connect.
Tom's unmuted now.
Okay, Tom, can you please state your name and your address?
Yeah, Tom Hamilton, 17 Kenny Avenue.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been trying to rush through this to try to find out the laws, and I wish you would have distributed the law, maybe with an underlined section when you sent the memo. But I think there is a need to do this, but I'm seeing, based on my quick research, that the town is supposed to apply for a permit presenting its process and policies as part of that permit. And I just spent $285 on a gallon of bottom paint. And I bought a pressure washer that's only 1800 PSI, which is the recommendations. And I sweep up my scrapings off the boat when I do it. And I see other people doing the same thing. And I've got a wet vac that I could use. So I see that if you assembled a committee of some boat owners, you could get this sorted out pretty quickly. But we don't actually put it in the storm drain. It goes right into the ocean.
Yeah, that's
I
considered.
mean, maybe you call those vents down there a storm drain, but it goes into the ocean. Okay, so, but this isn't something I think the voters are against. I think it behooves the town to do something because we pay fees and so forth. So, and based on what I see, Gloucester, several cities have developed processes and new procedures, even purchased equipment. There's grants available. And I think you all need to do a little more work.
Yeah, a couple of things, Tom. It is part of the storm drain system. All of our storm drains in the town enter into the ocean, whether they're right next to the ocean or a distance away. But all of the storm drains in town do eventually empty into the ocean.
Okay, good. That's a short one.
Yeah, this is a short trip, right? The second point is applying for a permit. The town at this point is not applying for a permit to DEP to accommodate this. As Josh and Tony said, we will look over the winter to see if there's a feasible way, a permittable way to allow this. But at this point, the town is not in the position to apply for a permit to accommodate this. Dan, can you add to any of that?
Yeah, we need to come up with a plan before we go to a permit, because a permit is going to require us to have a plan, not in place, but at least something we can put in the application to say, this is what we recommend to collect or treat or whatever the system. So seeking a permit at this point would be superfluous because there's nothing really to put in it. So we've already reached out to our engineer to start the process of what do we have to do to make sure this is right. But,
Okay. Could somebody send me a copy of the regulation that you're citing or that you're trying to comply with so I could review it myself?
Yeah, we'll put that up on the town website, Tom.
Okay, and could you underline the portions you think are applicable?
Sure.
Yeah,
I don't
thanks for your
We can
comments,
tell
Tom.
you-
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead, Tony.
I don't know. It's not that easy. So we're going through the process ourselves at the same time. There's about 6 different state and federal laws that apply to this situation, or, may or may not, depending on what your activity you're proposing. And we can provide you that, but it's not that simple. Dan, do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, the regulations are in the thousands. To find a particular one that applies is a bit of a chore. We'll find it eventually, but we have plenty of material from the state that specifically addresses pressure washing that goes into pressure washing that creates wastewater or wash water that goes into the stormwater system. The Coastal Zone Management Agency put out plenty of literature in that regard. So that's what we're basing our opinion on. And not to mention, as I said, we reached out to our town engineer, and she couldn't be in more agreement that something needs to be done. So that's what we're looking at.
If we could at least post what we have on our website, that would be a good start.
Sure.
I was just gonna say, yeah, I agree, Tom. I mean, I think it's a solvable problem. It's gonna take some work and some money. I've been working on it frantically for the past 2 days because, like you, I have a pressure washer that doesn't do me any good unless I can use it on my boat, and I know what a huge convenience pressure washing is relative to other methods, and I got one of the larger boats down there, and it's going to be a pain in the neck. So I'm going to be working on it for my own personal reasons as well as for town reasons, and I'll probably need some help too. So
yeah, well, that 1800 PSI reference I just pulled out this afternoon, but the 1800 PSI pressure washer I bought is iffy at best.
I think, Tom, what we need to do tonight is to make these changes. Then we're in a better position to go to the regulators potentially and say, hey, this is what we're trying to accomplish. What's the best way to do that? What's the permittable way to accomplish that goal versus bringing them in beforehand?
Yeah, well, I say you're putting all this on the boat owners without doing the homework yourself. But that's my opinion.
Any other comments?
Yeah, this is Scott Bradley, 33 Summer Street. First, I'd like to commend the Nahant Selectmen for taking environmental safety seriously. I'm a strong believer in it and have been very close to environmentalism all my life. I just wish we'd been having this discussion a month ago. There are multiple options available. I've been going through the regulations. I flew back from a trip, and on the flight back was going through regulations and what kind of options are available. There are certain ones, I mean, certainly could be doable. If we had this a month ago, we could have something in place already. I think we need to take the time to have a committee, review the solutions, come up with the best one. As it was mentioned earlier, how and when really is the issue here. The night before the boat haul is really not the right time to completely change how the boats are cleaned. There is mitigation done now, reducing the flow of waste with those straw blocks, which is a good step, the first step. The data I've had a chance to review, again, only in the last 24 hours, solid waste tends to have 66,000 part per million particulates. The water flow drops down to 170 particulates. So if we're capturing the solid waste, we're capturing 95% of the issue. I think the EPA would see that as the boat's taking and making the right step. That being said, I would like to assist and at least certainly offer in designing and deploying a system, and I'd like to be part of the solution.
Thanks, Scott. And I know you come from a strong line of environmentalists with your mother and father. So I appreciate your comments. And, I think between Gene and I and Tony, we're going to be leaning on Josh a lot on this regard because he's been doing a lot of the research here. And Josh, perhaps we can put a small committee together to begin looking at this and include people like Scott and Tom on that.
Yep. Yep, Scott and I talked about it this morning, so.
As Scott suggested, Tony, could we put together a subcommittee of the boaters, the recreational and lobstermen?
Sure, I don't see why not. I think that those who store their boats on this should very much be part of the solution.
Great, we'll do that, Scott. And yeah, we do apologize for the timing, but there's never a wrong time to make the right decision. And unfortunately, it was a little late this time, but I do think it's the right decision until we can find a suitable alternative. Any other comments?
I mean, I will say to that point that Scott and Tom brought up, it was just last Wednesday at the Board of Selectmen meeting that, a fellow boat store and a large group of members from SWIM were on the call, and this topic was brought up to us. And, we had already been kind of looking into it, but, that kind of really put us in a sticky position and, to the point where we had to say, all right, everybody agrees that the current practice isn't permitted. So let's just prevent that for the time being, and let's continue to work towards an alternative solution. It's the best we can do in the limited time we have. I agree that, it would have been great to have this conversation a month ago. And that's why I sent an email out a few days ago saying, hey, we're having this meeting, please join the call. You should be aware of what's coming. So certainly, we want to engage the group. And if it's in a committee form, that's great. The more help we have on this, the better.
Thanks, Tony. Any other comments?
If I may, thank you.
Go ahead.
Burton, 296 Nahant. Maybe this is a obvious thing, but there's no reason to power wash right now. You can wait till springtime. Get our ducks in a row and do it then.
That may be what it comes to. It's works much better when the seaweed is still wet, but
But even after a couple of days, you can still do it. It's not a big deal.
yeah. So hopefully we'll have an improved system in place by the spring. We'll see, but I don't want to count my chickens yet, but that's my goal.
All right, any other comments?
I just have a comment. Hi, this is Kristen Standish. I'm at Bass Point currently. My question is the bylaws that are, or the rules that are in place, are they published clearly somewhere now? Because there seems to have been quite a bit of confusion as to the exact rules. And are they published, and can we review them somewhere?
I think they're on the storage agreement document that we fill out and turn into the harbor master.
I can add to that, Josh. There are rules and regulations for the parks, the wharf, things of that nature. And I do believe that's on the website. A wholly separate document is the storage agreement Josh just mentioned. So there are really two documents at play here. Tonight's vote will look to amend actually both of them to make it, as you said, to make it more clear.
Okay, and then how does that affect the contracts that are actually in play that we've agreed to and signed and paid for?
You can't contract to perform an illegal act. So no matter what the contracts say or don't say, you can't pressure wash, period, no matter what the contracts say. There's no defense of the EPA saying, well, I had a contract saying I could do this. EPA is going to laugh at that. They say, well, it doesn't mean anything because it's illegal. So there's even the contracts that are currently signed, I think there's only about 9 or 10. You still, even though it doesn't include this language that I think we're going to add, maybe not, you still can't power wash because it's illegal despite whatever the contract says, or the agreement, I should say.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the boat storage agreement, and it has rules 1 through 9, and the new proposed rules are the 10 through what is it?
13.
10 through 13.
And well, before you guys take your vote, I need to read those so we're clear.
Yeah,
That's what I was asking, if we could read those rules before.
Yep.
yeah. You want me to read them right now? I have them up.
Go ahead, Josh.
I'll go ahead. So rule number 10, no pressure washing of bottom paint may be performed on any boat stored on Tudor Wharf without the express written permission of the harbor master. Said permission will not be issued, it says issued, but it should say issued, unless the owner produces a plan to collect and dispose of the wastewater. Scraping marine growth is allowed, but owner is responsible for disposing of removed growth at an off-site location. That's rule number 10. Rule number 11, sanding is permitted only with the use of vacuum type dust collection system. So people should be aware of that one too. That's an important one. Actually, you gotta be aware of all these. Well, that's another change. 12 is painting on bottoms will be allowed only with a tarp placed under the boat. Rule number 13, owners violation of any of the foregoing provisions will result in A, the town not executing a storage agreement with owner for the following storage season, and B, the town pursuing owner for reimbursement from any resultant fine issued by state or federal environmental agencies. So those are the 4 new rules. We haven't talked about the other ones. 11, sanding with the vacuum type collection system. That's a change. I think it's a good change. You know, people that are walking by don't need to be bombarded with bottom paints debris. And there've been squabbles about people getting bottom paint dust on each other's boats and stuff like that. I think it's a good change. Not hard to do. If you have a vacuum, if you have a sander with a bag on it, you just connect your shop vac to that spot and you're done. Tarps under the boat, that's easy enough when you paint. So those are the 3 new rules. And then the 4th being, you know, you have to pay the fine if you violate it and you don't get to store there next year.
Thank you.
So one of the environmental best practices that I learned was that in the collection of the solid waste is they recommend a centralized bin filled about 2/3 of the way with sawdust in which you put it in and then it gets collectively removed. It's questionable whether all people would properly dispose of of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think practically speaking, if we're going to do this legally, it probably needs to be a cooperative effort where everyone's using the same storage container and we know that it's being taken away by a licensed disposal company, that sort of thing. You know, so like if you read those rules, in theory, you could do it on your own, but practically speaking, it probably makes sense to do it collectively.
Hey, Josh, listening to some of the recommendations or suggestions being made, would there be any reason not to hold off until spring till we have an opportunity to put the rules and regulations together, but also maybe contribute to helping the boat owners with some sort of a process, an in-town process?
I'm not sure I understood the question. You mean hold off on changing the rules until the spring?
No, hold off until doing the boats until spring.
I can address that, Josh. If the EPA does.
Oh, what do you mean, Gene? What do you mean by hold off doing the boats until spring? I mean,
What I'm saying is, and it's just a question.
No,
yeah, no, I understand it correctly.
we dropped this on everybody this week. And there's not much of an opportunity for everybody to get together and put together the tools needed to do this correctly. If they pull their boats, put them into dry dock, is there any reason we couldn't do what we want to do now after we've developed the process in the spring?
You mean
Right,
you put a
so
process in place over the winter and then pressure wash in the spring? Oh,
Yes.
that would be my goal for sure. Yeah, I mean, hopefully we
What
can get
we're
it.
trying to,
Whether we can accomplish that or not, I don't know, but that's definitely
Well-
what I hope.
Well, we'd be taking the boats out of the water. We wouldn't be doing any pressure washing or scraping, and they would just dry out for the winter. And then in the spring, once we have a good process in place, then we could do what we're trying to accomplish, what we're trying to do. We wouldn't now be violating any rules or regulations because we're just taking the boats out and setting them.
Well, Gene, I think that's our goal. Whether we can get there in the spring or not, we'll see. Hopefully we do. But in the meantime, we do need to have a policy in place in the event that someone ignores all of this and says, you know what, it doesn't say anywhere in the regulations or my contract agreement that I can't do this, so I'm doing it. So I think the town needs to be protected from any potential lawsuit between now and the time we have a permittable system in place.
Well, could we put, Dan, maybe Dan can answer this. Dan, is there any opportunity to put a short-term rule or regulation into place to prohibit that over the next week? Or for the next season?
the terms that you're going to be voting on tonight say no pressure washing unless authorized by the harbor master. So what we're doing tonight is preventing boat owners who store their boat on the wharf from pressure washing their boat before we have, while we work on some alternative solution. So the answer is yes, Gene. What you're suggesting is exactly what we're trying to do.
Okay, so can we do that?
We hope so.
Yes.
I think so. That's what we're going to try to do. And in the way that rule number 9 is written, it does allow the harbor master to give written permission if there is a system in place. I'm looking for the words. Said permission will not be issued unless the owner produces a plan. The owner could be all of the owners, produces a plan to collect and dispose of the wastewater. So I assume if we had an approved system in place, that the harbor master would give permission, but not until that system is in place.
Okay.
Okay. Any
I
other
have a question. Yes, it's me, Mark. It's Sheila Hambleton, Town Assessor. I'm also a boat owner,
address?
and I do store my boat down at the town wharf. And
Address, Sheila?
Pardon me,
Your address?
17 Kenny Ave.
Okay.
Sorry about that. And I commend everybody for doing this. It's been an issue with me for a long time, but I am shocked that it happens to be the day before and we haul our boats, but that's okay. So I have a suggestion is there's a waterways fund that our boat excise is supposed to be going to, and any of the fees and late fees, etc., that maybe that for next year we could actually establish a true waterways fund, and that this would take care of, help with the paying of things that just are for boaters in the Nahant Harbor versus taxpayers, because maybe this is something that some taxpayers don't want to have to pay for.
Good suggestions, Sheila. We'll definitely look into this. And,
Okay.
and I am sensitive, as I stated earlier in my opening comments, that not everybody in the Nahant is a boat owner. and only a small fraction. But I do think, again, that we live in a community, and as a community, we need to support each other. We don't all have kids in school, but we pay for our schools. We don't all have kids in the library, but we all don't go to the library, but we pay for the library, et cetera, et cetera. Boat ownership in the marine environment down there is important to this town. And I hope we can find a way to, as a town, to come together and solve this.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sheila.
Yeah, thanks. And there will be, I mean, there's of course upfront costs, but there will be a smaller recurring cost to, dispose of the stuff or,
Right.
renewals or filters and whatever else. So that's an interesting thought about the that fund you mentioned. So good idea.
Any other questions?
So I have a motion, Mark, whenever you're ready, you can just
Yeah,
read it
go
off.
ahead, Josh. You have the
Yes.
motion in front of you?
All right, I can read it off.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
You guys have it already? Go right
I have
ahead.
it in my email here. Yeah. Hold on. Okay, I move that the Board of Selectmen authorize the town administrator to amend the Nahant Wharf Boat Storage Form Agreement consistent with tonight's discussion and to make the appropriate changes to the rules and regulations governing the use of parks, beaches, and the wharf so that they are consistent with the newly amended agreement.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion on this motion?
Manzano, 55 Colby Way.
Go
One of
ahead, Ed.
One of the things I think would be important is that if the amendment is made and passed, that those persons who have a contract be given a contract with the new amendment from the town.
Good point. Thanks, Ed. We'll do that.
I think that makes sense.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor?
Gene Canty, aye.
Josh Antrim,
Mark Cullen, aye. Motion's been passed. And again, we'll try to keep everybody engaged. And Josh, if you don't mind sort of taking the lead with you and Tony on this. I
Yep,
appreciate it.
happy to do that.
Okay, great. Okay, let me just get back to I think there are a few other things on the agenda. On this ongoing business, town administrators' goals. Let me just say, hold on one second. These are the 2022-23 goals that the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator have agreed upon. It's been a little while since we get back to them, but I know that Josh and Jean, you've commented on all of the goals. So have I. I'm not going to go through all our comments. It'll be kind of lengthy, but they're very instructive. A copy of this will be sent to Tony. Let me just quickly say what these goals are. Run through them very quickly and give you a summary of what the three of us had concluded. The first goal was to continue to improve access for Nahant citizens to information, particularly on current and upcoming town projects, including appropriate scope and schedule of dedicated projects on the Nahant website. Goal number 2, continue to maintain an open and transparent atmosphere and ensure that all Board of Selectmen members are informed of all important matters impacting the town. Let's see. Missing something out of order here, maybe. Number 6, maintain effective, positive communication among all town boards and committees. Let's see, make timely appointments to all boards and committees as specified in the special act and are directed by town meeting. Maintain annual goals and objectives for all department heads and perform annual performance evaluations. continue to provide a safe, effective, and cordial work environment for all employees. Review with the Community Preservation Committee, reporting on the status of new completed and planned CPC projects. And finally, consistent with the vote at the 2022 town meeting, providing professional technical assistance services to support the town with understanding housing needs, establishing housing goals, and identifying housing strategies, which may include development of housing production plan or other housing strategies. I will say that on average, all three members of the Board of Selectmen have generally said that the town administrator either meets or exceeds our expectations on all of these goals. So I just want to say, Tony, thanks for a great year. I think you performed outstandingly, and look forward to the next coming year. Josh or Jane, you have any comments on this?
Go ahead, Gene.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, there's, I mean, you gave it sort of the short treatment mark. There's more goals there, but you know, by and large, you know.
Oh, I missed
definitely
one. I missed two, actually. Make progress on identifying and marking public rights of way. Is that the one I missed?
There's other ones, I think, unless I am misreading, but
Mine is out of order, the document I have, but okay.
yeah, there's a bunch more, but you know, maybe it's getting into minutia, but certainly agree with the sentiment that Tony's doing a good job, and we're continuing to improve as a community. Still work to go, but it's a good year.
I agree with Josh. There's a bunch more to go. But Mark, I think what you did was you touched on the important ones and rated those as such. I would think that based on all of those that I read on the needs improvement, needs improvement, meets expectations, exceeds expectations. The summary number here was meets expectations. I think it's right on the borderline. So I'd be more in line with making it exceeds if it came down to that.
Yeah, I think that you know, if one was needs improvements and three was exceeds expectations, I would say the overall score was about a 2.8. So if we were rounding up, it would be exceeds expectations.
You know, the only thing we didn't do is you had suggested it, was put a time frame on these so that as we go on, we'll know where we were and where we are in terms of accomplishing that particular goal. But
Yeah.
we're by the board.
Yeah, I think as we go into the next year, what would be good is if we have a either quarterly review or a biannual review of the goals, rather than just set them and then wait at the end of the year and evaluate them, but do an evaluation in the middle of the year. So if it needs improvements, then he can work on the improvements. But rather than just set them and then come back at the end of the year, I think it's a disservice to us and to Tony. So I think you know, semi-annual review would be appropriate.
The two things that I also picked out was that on a time frame, I thought it would be measurable if we had all of the town heads, managers on a once a year sit down with the Board of Selectmen and let them tell us what is happening with what expectations they're meeting in their departments. The other was the CPC. I thought it would be good to have a twice yearly meeting with them.
Yeah.
To get an update on program status.
We could definitely meet with the Community Preservation Committee. They don't have much to say until they get their applications. Tony has been monitoring the status of implementing the funding for that and how the projects are going. We could meet with them. I'm a little hesitant about, getting the Board of Selectmen involved in meeting with department heads. I don't typically see that as my job, but I certainly we can talk to Tony about that.
Okay.
Okay, any further discussion on this?
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Tony.
No, I just wanted to thank the Board of Selectmen for, your review of these goals. I want to thank you for your leadership and for setting these goals. It helps, organize our priorities as a town. It helps keep me on a schedule and understanding, where things lie on the list. I have to say that, I appreciate all the positive feedback. It is 110% due to the team that we have in town, from, those who work at the town hall, to the library, to the school, to the DPW, police, fire, to all the volunteers. Success doesn't lie with, just one person, and it truly is a team effort. And, I can say that, everyone who works for the town and everyone who volunteers for the town truly has that mentality of, wanting to do right by the town and wanting to do right by the people in this town. So with that, we have a good core, we have a good foundation, and that's ultimately what, produces success. So I thank you for your review and for your comments, and I commend, everyone that's involved in that review. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mark, I wrote down sort of a quickie summary as I thought, as I was going through Tony's goals for the past year. It sort of reflected on the bigger picture in the future. Would you mind if I?
Oh, please go ahead.
Those reflections. All right. I don't want to take a lot of time, but in part of this is that we just recently passed in August Tony's 5-year mark as the town administrator. So my recap is the first 5 years of Mr. Barletta's town administrator tenure has been a success for a variety of reasons, but certainly including rapid turnover in the TA position in Nahant. Mr. Barletta stepped into the TA role with some serious challenges. I see the growth in these general categories. Town finances. Finances are in much better shape compared to 5 years ago. Number 2, communication. Mr. Barletta was presented with the challenge of enhancing communication from the town to the citizens. Substantial improvement has been achieved here. Number 3, infrastructure. During Mr. Barletta's tenure, lingering sewer and water infrastructure needs are being addressed. Number 4, public open spaces. Mr. Barletta has realized the importance of enhancing Nahant's open spaces and public places. Substantial improvements have been made over the past 5 years. Number 5, town employees. The natural turnover has resulted in new department heads in almost every department in the last 5 years. Mr. Barletta has built a great new team of department heads and individual contributors. Town employee morale is at a high point. So that's my recap of your first 5 years. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. I think in a future meeting, we're going to talk about goals for this year as well. So this
Great summary.
my 3-minute summary of 5 years of hard work.
Yeah, that's great.
Tony, if I could interject too, just looking at it, it's obvious as you're going through all the goals, excuse my voice, as you're going through all the goals and objectives, the volume of work, the number of projects that you're exposed to and that you have to work with. And I'm just curious as to whether or not there's any plans for the future to perhaps hire a grant writer or somebody who could take on other of your duties and help you to free up some of your time to spend on certain projects?
Well, we have, we currently utilize our project managers and engineers as grant writers. And I would say that, while there's a lot of, other grants out there available, we are maximizing our potential in achieving those grants. With those grants come a lot of action items, a lot of schedules, a lot of resources and time. And so while there's a lot out there, the town can only take on so much at a time, at a given time. And I think right now we're, or over the last 5 years, we've really maximized that ability. In fact, almost over our heels, over our toes on it a little bit. Just by looking at like what's been approved at previous town meetings and CPC projects and capital projects approved at town meetings and other grants that we've gotten, we have a long list of things that we're trying to catch up on because we're small and we have to, we're stretched in. So we try to work as hard as we can. So I think that a grant writer is a positive thing. I'm certainly not against it. We currently utilize, like I said, Vicky Masson and our coastal engineers to help us with that process. We just last week, we got one from Coastal Zone Management on 40 steps. And a lot of that was written by our coastal engineer.
I'm not suggesting that it's a grant writer alone. I'm thinking about what you're talking about, the et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The need to have somebody to help you with that. It's just a question.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to it. I think we have a pretty good system in place, and
you do.
I think that we're in pretty good shape. We really maximize a lot of our dollars by matching them with grant funds, and a lot of the work that we've been able to accomplish over the last 5 years is due to those, whether it's CPC or it's state grant opportunities, which have then resulted in reduction in operational costs and other things like that. So, there's always more work to be done, and it's, it could be useful in some ways. It could be harmful in some ways, but it's not out of the realm of possibilities.
Thanks, Tony.
Thanks, Tony. Okay. Anything on the town administrator's report, Tony?
We had a call with FEMA late last week about Short Beach Dune 2018 storm damage money. It's the Little Nahant section of the dune right next to the playground. We're working hard to hold on to the funding related to that project. FEMA, we were obligated a certain amount of funds, around $150,000, to rebuild that dune and the damage that was caused by that 2018 storm. They approved it. Our coastal engineer designed it. We got it permitted, and then the market rate changed and the cost of the project is significantly higher. So a standard practice is to go back to FEMA and ask for more funds. And FEMA kind of responded with, this project may not be eligible. Which we're responding to that. We're responding to that firmly, that, it was approved previously. We've invested in engineering. We've invested in permitting, and it's not, that FEMA really should not be in a position to de-obligate the project at this point. So we're working hard on trying to get that through the finish line, get the additional funds that we need so we can get that project on the way. I reached out to Senator Crichton for contact information for former State Rep Lori Ehrlich of Swampscott, who now works for FEMA Region 1. He provided that to me, so I'm going to reach out to her and see if she can help us, navigate through this process. It's really important that we not only hold on to the funds that they've already obligated for this project, but the increased amount of funding necessary to complete the project properly. So it's a hot issue for us. On lowlands stormwater, we signed a contract with engineering on that, and we're doing a site visit tomorrow with the engineers so that they can begin and complete designing and hopefully move to an RFP in about a month. Our goal on that was always November for an RFP. It's a little bit behind schedule, but I think still, something we can accomplish in November. We had a sub-bid. We opened our sub-bids for the Lowlands pump station today, and next Wednesday, I believe it's next Wednesday, is our general bid opening for the pump station on Ward Road. So that project's moving right along as well. And then lastly, we ordered a shipment of COVID tests. We have about 300 of them at the town hall. We have ability to order more. There's also, with those, you'll receive a QR code where you can order 4 tests from USPS.com. They'll send 4 tests to your house. So if you need a test in a hurry, you can come to the town hall, and right on the box there'll be a QR code where you can order 4 more to be sent to your home. I think we meet again next week, so that's good for now, and I can update more next week.
Okay, thank you, Tony. I know that you've been in touch with our delegation regarding the outfall of the Swampscott, and we'll report on that next week. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Citizens Forum. This is for citizens other than sort of the town law vote issue. Any other comments on Citizen Forum?
Tom Hambleton wanted to speak. Tom.
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah. There's an issue that I've kind of come across that I'd like to present to you. In getting ready for the special town meeting on the 12th, I went back and looked at some of the map that was presented to the planning board regarding the Coast Guard housing.
Mm-hmm.
And in my opinion, what they've done does not comply with the vote. I believe they were supposed to keep an 8-foot strip of land on Castle Road that I don't see on this plan. Normally on this plan, although it's not legally required, you would put the conditions like the 25% floor area ratio, the sales process, and so forth. I also didn't see a sidewalk on Gardner Road that was in earlier versions. And as I look at the contour map, I started to get worried about the money for the demolition and grading. When they just talk about level the ground, we had contour maps done. And I did some rough calculations and figured out that it's likely to be 12 or more truckloads of dirt come out of there. Ordinance, something saying that you're not supposed to remove mass quantities of dirt from town. So I'm just kind of wondering, what are they going to comply with the contour plan that we had? Do you have any comments about why that 8-foot strip that's required in the town vote wasn't taken in the drawing? So does the drawing need to be redone?
I Are you referring, Tom, let me interject here. Are you referring to the plan that was sent to the planning board? Is this for the A&R?
Yes. That plan does not comply with the town vote to keep that 8-foot strip of land. There's an easement in there, but that's not retaining the land.
Okay. Any
So-
comment, Dan? Dan?
Yeah, I haven't seen the plan recently, but we do know that we need to retain ownership of that land. That's not an issue. That's gonna happen. It's not gonna be an easement. It's gonna be
Yeah, but
ownership.
it's not on the drawing.
Well, it may not be, but
I don't
that's-
recall, I don't recall an 8-foot strip on Castle Road.
I don't either.
I recall a section of land for the
Yeah.
trail.
Well,
I recall a section of land along the golf course, and I recall a section of land abutting Fort Ruckman, but nothing on Castle Road.
okay. Well, the presentation that the committee gave to the select board shows the 8-foot section in blue. It shows the Heritage Trail, the golf course, and the other. So, I mean, we discussed this over and over, and I made a special point to change that motion at town meeting because that's what the committee wanted. So anyhow, I'm just pointing it out. I mean, in my opinion,
There's the,
if it wasn't done right, it should be done over.
I'm
Now-
looking at the vote now. There is no 8-foot strip on Castle Road in the vote. I'm looking right at it.
You're looking at the amended vote?
No, I'm looking at the original
Yeah,
article.
well, nobody cares about that. That's not what they voted on.
So you're saying that there was an amendment adding 8-foot strip on Castle Road? I don't think so. I think I remember that. It's pretty significant.
I made the amendment. And I still have my notes.
We can take a look at that, Tom. We just don't have the information, and if the adjustment needs to be made, we can do that. But
Yeah,
we should
okay.
comply with what was voted on at town meeting.
Yeah,
We'll take a look at
Okay.
it.
but what I'm concerned about now is that, are you gonna follow the contour plan that the committee had? Because that was really a key element in getting those lots ready for sale, like in build-ready condition. So, I mean, that's my point. Is the contractor who's gonna do that, is he gonna follow that plan? Or is he just gonna do whatever he wants? I really wanted to see the quotes from the vendors.
Yeah, I don't recall seeing a plan that showed the cut and fill of what was required. I've never seen that plan.
I'll bring it in.
Okay, I've seen contour of the property, but I've never saw an analysis of what the cut and fill is going to be.
He, when the committee basically stopped work, that was a piece that wasn't done. But the contour plan by default shows how much land, soil has to come out. I just don't remember how to calculate all that anymore.
We'll take a look at it.
Okay,
Thank you. Any other comments?
Michelle Capano wanted to speak. Michelle, if you'd like to unmute yourself.
hi, this is Tony.
Tony's back on too.
Hi, thank you. Michelle Capano, 29 Ocean Street. And related to the contour plan, Dan, is this also the same location on Castle Road that had to be amended with the title with the federal government?
I don't know. I gotta look at I'm looking at the transcript. I think I have it right here in front of me. I look at it, but I don't know is the answer to your question. I don't want to speak out of turn. But there was a confirmation of deed that we had to get. And I do recall it being right around 8 feet wide, but I don't know if that's what Tom said.
yeah. No, I mean, that's,
That
the wording said
involved-
that if that government land issue was resolved, then the 8-foot section would be taken.
And Tom,
Okay.
just to clarify, to make sure we're talking about the annual town meeting from 2021.
Yeah,
I'm not seeing it in the copy that's on the town's website where you said you made a change to the motion.
Well, I have a copy somewhere.
I think if you can get that to Dan, because I think Dan and I are looking at the same copy, and I see all what was agreed to in the change of the motion, but I'm not seeing anything to your name to that effect.
But it was my amendment that they voted on.
Well, again,
Right.
if it's not in the transcripts, you have to probably go back to the video documentation or something.
All right. Well, I got my copy from the town, so
Okay.
I'll look for it.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, Michelle?
That's it for tonight.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, hearing none, I'll hear a motion to adjourn.
Move that the Board of Selectmen adjourn.
Seconded.
Motion is made, seconded, in discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Gene Canty, aye.
Josh, Hickman, aye.
Mark Cullen, aye. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Good night.
Good
Thank
night.
you.